Alabama. This deep South state is defined by its rolling hills and fertile soil, famously known as the Black Belt, which shaped its agricultural past and complicated civil rights history. From the massive space industry hubs in Huntsville to the historic ports of Mobile, the state balances a legacy of cotton production with a modern role in aerospace, automotive manufacturing, and maritime trade. It serves as a geographic bridge between the Gulf Coast and the Appalachian foothills, maintaining a culture deeply rooted in college football and soulful culinary traditions. Alaska. Purchased from Russia in 1867 for about 2 cents an acre, this massive frontier is more than twice the size of Texas and remains the most sparsely populated state in the Union. Its identity is tied to its extreme wilderness, vast oil reserves on the North Slope, and the resilient indigenous cultures that have thrived in the Arctic for millennia. Because much of the state is inaccessible by road, aviation and shipping remain the primary lifelines for its remote interior villages and rugged coastal towns. Arizona. Home to the Grand Canyon, this desert powerhouse has transformed from an arid mining outpost into one of the fastest-growing residential and technological hubs in the country. Its landscape shifts dramatically from the iconic saguaro deserts of the south to the high-elevation pine forests of the north, driven by a history of copper mining and a modern reliance on complex canal systems for water. Phoenix has emerged as a major center for semiconductor manufacturing, proving that large-scale urban life can thrive in one of the hottest climates on the continent. Arkansas. This state is split geographically between the rugged Ozark and Ouachita Mountains in the northwest and the flat, rich alluvial plains of the Mississippi River Delta in the southeast. While it is deeply rooted in timber, rice, and poultry production, it is also the unlikely birthplace of some of the world's largest retail and logistics corporations. This creates a unique blend of rural Southern traditions and high-stakes global business, all set against a backdrop of natural thermal springs and dense national forests. California. As the most populous state, it functions almost like its own sovereign nation, housing the global tech engines of Silicon Valley, the entertainment capital of Hollywood, and the massive Central Valley Farm Belt. Its Mediterranean climate and diverse geography make it a primary driver of the national economy, with a coastline that facilitates trade with Asia and mountains that store critical water supplies. From the giant redwoods in the north to the Mojave Desert in the south, its cultural and economic influence is felt across every aspect of American life. Colorado. Defined by the soaring peaks of the Rocky Mountains, this state transitioned from a 19th-century mining territory into a premier center for outdoor recreation, aerospace technology, and renewable energy. It sits at a high average elevation where the Great Plains meet the high peaks, fostering a lifestyle focused on environmental preservation and rapid urban growth along the Front Range. The state has become a magnet for young professionals attracted by its combination of high-altitude scenery and a burgeoning tech industry centered in Denver and Boulder. Connecticut. One of the original 13 colonies, this small New England state long served as a center for maritime trade and the global insurance industry. It sits in a unique position between the cultural pull of New York City and Boston, maintaining a landscape of historic coastal towns, prestigious universities, and wealthy suburban corridors. Despite its small size, it played a massive role in the American Industrial Revolution, pioneering the manufacturing of firearms, clocks, and hardware that once supplied the entire nation. Florida. This peninsula is a subtropical mix of vast wetlands like the Everglades and high-density coastal cities that attract millions of tourists and retirees every year. Its history is marked by early Spanish exploration and a massive mid-century population boom that turned it into a critical political and economic force with a heavy emphasis on aerospace and international trade. Because it is surrounded by water on 3 sides, its identity is inseparable from its white sand beaches, citrus groves, and the unique cultural melting pot of Miami. Delaware. Known as the first state to ratify the Constitution, this tiny coastal area is famous today for its business-friendly legal environment and lack of sales tax. Most major American corporations are technically headquartered here to take advantage of its specialized court of chancery, though the state itself is characterized by quiet Atlantic beaches and sprawling farmland. It acts as a vital transit point in the Northeast Corridor, connecting the bustling cities of the Atlantic coast through its historic riverfronts and bridges. Georgia, the largest state east of the Mississippi River by land area. It serves as the primary logistical and economic engine of the American Southeast. Atlanta dominates the landscape as a global transportation hub and a center for film production and civil rights history, while the rest of the state maintains a strong output of peaches, pecans, and timber. Its geography is incredibly varied, moving from the salt marshes of the Atlantic coast to the blue-tinted ridges of the Blue Ridge Mountains in the north. Hawaii. This volcanic archipelago in the Central Pacific joined the Union in 1959, bringing a unique Polynesian heritage and vital strategic military importance to the United States. Its economy is built on a foundation of international tourism and tropical agriculture, supported by a chain of islands that feature everything from active, lava-spewing volcanoes to lush, inaccessible rainforests. It remains the only state that is not located in North America, preserving a distinct linguistic and cultural identity that honors its history as an independent kingdom. Idaho. While famous globally for its massive potato production, this northwestern state is actually dominated by the rugged, roadless wilderness of the Rocky Mountains and deep river canyons. It has recently seen a surge in population as people move toward the high desert climate of Boise, seeking a balance between a growing tech sector and unparalleled access to outdoor recreation. The state's landscape is defined by its dramatic verticality, including Hell's Canyon, which is even deeper than the Grand Canyon. Illinois. Dominated by the massive metropolis of Chicago on the shores of Lake Michigan, this state acts as the ultimate crossroads of the American Midwest. Beyond the skyscrapers and the global rail hubs of the North lies a vast expanse of some of the most productive farmland in the world, stretching down to the quiet confluence of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. It is a state of stark contrasts, where the industrial and financial power of a world-class city meets the traditional agricultural values of the rural heartland. Indiana. This state is often called the crossroads of America due to the sheer number of interstate highways and rail lines that intersect within its borders. It maintains a strong manufacturing base and a deep cultural connection to auto racing and collegiate sports, set against a backdrop of limestone quarries and endless cornfields. The northern part of the state shares a coastline with Lake Michigan, providing an industrial gateway, while the southern hills reflect the more rugged topography of the Ohio River Valley. Iowa. Situated between the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, this state is the undisputed heart of the American Corn Belt and a leader in sustainable energy. Its rolling plains are almost entirely dedicated to industrial agriculture and wind power production, while its small towns and cities play a disproportionately large role in the national political cycle every 4 years. It represents the quintessential American prairie, where deep topsoil and a predictable climate have created one of the most reliable food-producing regions on Earth. Kansas. Often viewed as the quintessential prairie state, it was a central and violent battleground in the lead-up to the American Civil War. Today, it is a leading producer of wheat and a hub for the global aviation industry in Wichita, representing the geographic transition from the humid east to the arid high plains. Its flat horizons and massive thunderstorms are legendary, but the state also contains hidden flint hills that represent some of the last remaining tallgrass prairie in existence. Louisiana. Influenced by its French and Spanish colonial roots, this state possesses a culture and a legal system unlike any other in the Union. The Mississippi River Delta dictates its economy, which relies heavily on international shipping, oil refining, and the vibrant, jazz-influenced atmosphere of New Orleans. Its landscape is a maze of bayous, cypress swamps, and coastal marshes that are both ecologically fragile and vital to the nation's energy and seafood supplies. Kentucky. This upland South state is world-renowned for its thoroughbred horse racing, bluegrass music, and historic bourbon distilleries. Its geography is incredibly diverse, moving from the coal-rich Appalachian Mountains in the east to the rolling meadows of the central region and the massive underground labyrinth of Mammoth Cave. The state's culture is defined by its position on the border between the north and south, blending industrial river towns with a deeply traditional rural lifestyle. Maine. Occupying the far northeastern tip of the country, this state is defined by its jagged, rocky Atlantic coastline and vast, uninhabited pine forests that cover the interior. It produces the majority of the nation's lobster and wild blueberries, maintaining a rugged, independent character shaped by the sea and the timber industry. Despite its cold winters, it remains a premier destination for those seeking solitude in the wilderness of the North Woods or the historic charm of its coastal lighthouses. Maryland. This state is nearly split in two by the Chesapeake Bay, which has historically driven its economy through fishing, crabbing, and maritime trade. Its proximity to the nation's capital makes it a massive hub for government agencies, biotech research, and defense contracting, blending historic colonial sites with high-density suburban life. From the sandy beaches of the Atlantic to the forested hills of the West, it is often called America in miniature because it contains almost every type of terrain found across the country. Michigan. Split into two distinct peninsulas by the massive waters of the Great Lakes, this state was the primary engine of the global automotive revolution and the middle-class dream. While Detroit remains its industrial and cultural heart, the state is also defined by thousands of miles of freshwater coastline and a massive tourism industry in the forested Upper Peninsula. It is the only state touched by 4 of the 5 Great Lakes, making water its most valuable and defining natural resource. Massachusetts. As a cradle of the American Revolution, this New England state is home to some of the oldest and most prestigious educational and scientific institutions in the world. Its history of seafaring, whaling, and textile mills has evolved into a modern economy driven by high technology, biotechnology, and global finance centered in Boston. The state maintains a strong connection to its colonial past, with historic town commons and coastal fishing villages that sit alongside world-class medical and research centers. Minnesota. Known as the land of 10,000 lakes, this northern state is the official source of the Mississippi River at Lake Itasca. It features a stark contrast between the dense urban centers and corporate headquarters of the Twin Cities and the remote, iron-rich wilderness of the North Woods. The state is characterized by its heavy Scandinavian and German heritage, a strong commitment to public education, and a landscape that was carved out by retreating glaciers thousands of years ago. Missouri. This state served as the historic jumping-off point for Western expansion, marked by the iconic Gateway Arch in St. Louis. It sits at the intersection of the Midwest and the South, blending the industrial heritage of its big cities with the rugged beauty and clear rivers of the Ozark Mountains. Because it borders 8 different states, it acts as a cultural and logistical melting pot, where the traditions of the Great Plains meet the customs of the Mississippi Valley. Mississippi. Named after the great river that forms its western border, this state has a history deeply tied to the plantation economy and the birth of the blues. It remains largely rural, with a landscape of pine forests and the fertile, flat soil of the delta that continues to influence its cultural and agricultural output. Despite a history of economic struggle, it has produced a disproportionate number of the country's greatest writers and musicians, leaving an indelible mark on American art. Montana. A state of massive proportions and a relatively small population, it is divided between the vast Great Plains in the east and the towering peaks of the Rockies in the west. Its identity is forged in ranching, mining, and the preservation of massive national parks like Glacier and Yellowstone. Known as Big Sky Country, its economy is increasingly driven by tourism and people seeking refuge in its wide-open spaces, though it remains a vital source of coal and cattle for the nation. Nebraska. This state is defined by the Great Plains and the vital Platte River Valley, which served as the primary corridor for pioneers heading west on the Oregon and Mormon trails. It is a powerhouse of cattle ranching and grain production, with a landscape that slowly but steadily rises in elevation toward the foothills of the Rockies. While its eastern cities are growing hubs for finance and rail transport, the western part of the state remains a vast, quiet expanse of sand hills and prairie. Nevada. Primarily a desert landscape, this state is the driest in the nation and is characterized by its dramatic basin and range topography. While it is famous globally for the entertainment, gaming, and tourism industries of Las Vegas, it is also a major producer of gold and silver. Most of the land is owned by the federal government, used for everything from massive military testing ranges to vast cattle allotments and protected wilderness areas. New Hampshire. This New England state is known for its rugged white mountains and its fierce spirit of local independence, famously captured in its state motto. It was the first colony to declare its independence from Great Britain and remains a center for small-scale manufacturing and mountain tourism. Without a state income or sales tax, it attracts many residents from neighboring states, balancing its historic mill towns with high-tech growth and a heavy reliance on the primary season of the political calendar. New Jersey. Despite being one of the smallest states by area, it is the most densely populated, serving as a vital industrial and residential corridor between the massive markets of New York and Philadelphia. It features a surprisingly diverse landscape that includes the famous Atlantic boardwalks of the Jersey Shore and the productive truck farms that earned it the nickname the Garden State. It is a global leader in the pharmaceutical and chemical industries, housing more scientists and engineers per square mile than almost anywhere else on Earth. New Mexico. Known as the Land of Enchantment, this state possesses a deep history of Spanish and Native American cultures that long predate the founding of the United States. Its high desert terrain and volcanic mountains have made it a center for both indigenous art and advanced nuclear and space research. It is a place where ancient adobe pueblos sit within driving distance of high-tech laboratories and astronomical observatories, all under a sky famous for its brilliant clarity and light. New York. Home to the nation's largest city and financial capital, the state also encompasses vast wilderness areas like the Adirondack Mountains and the fertile Great Lakes Plains. It has historically served as the primary gateway for millions of immigrants, shaping the cultural, social, and economic fabric of the entire country. From the financial district of Wall Street to the apple orchards of the Hudson Valley and the thunderous falls of Niagara, it remains a dominant force in global media, finance, and trade. North Carolina. This state stretches from the highest peaks of the Appalachian Mountains to the sandy, lighthouse-dotted outer banks of the Atlantic coast. It has successfully transitioned from a traditional tobacco and textile economy into a global leader in banking, biotechnology, and furniture manufacturing. The Research Triangle area in the center of the state has become one of the world's most important hubs for high-tech innovation, attracting a massive influx of new residents from across the globe. North Dakota. Situated at the very center of the North American continent, this state is a rugged expanse of flat wheat fields and the dramatic, eroded hills of the Badlands. In recent years, it has seen a massive economic shift and population boom driven by the discovery of vast oil reserves in the Bakken Formation. Despite this industrial growth, it remains one of the most rural states, where the weather is extreme and the heritage of the Great Plains pioneers is still very much alive. Ohio. Often considered a perfect microcosm of the entire country, this state connects the industrial Northeast with the agricultural heart of the Midwest. It has a long and storied history of manufacturing, aviation, and presidential politics, with several major cities that grew as hubs for the steel, rubber, and glass industries. While its urban centers are reinventing themselves through healthcare and technology, its rural areas remain deeply tied to the production of soy, corn, and livestock. Oklahoma. This state was originally designated as Indian Territory and remains the headquarters for dozens of tribal nations today, giving it a unique cultural depth. Its landscape of rolling plains and crossed timbers sits atop some of the continent's most massive energy reserves, making it a central player in the nation's oil and natural gas production. It is a state defined by its resilience, having survived the devastation of the Dust Bowl to become a leader in aerospace and weather research. Oregon. Known for its misty Douglas fir forests and its rugged, public-access Pacific coastline, this state is a leader in environmental conservation and the outdoor apparel industry. The Cascade Mountains split the state between the rainy, fertile Willamette Valley and the high, arid deserts of the east. It has a reputation for quirky urban culture in Portland, but the majority of its land is dedicated to timber production, fruit orchards, and some of the most diverse agriculture in the Northwest. Pennsylvania. As one of the original 13 colonies, this state played a central role in the founding of the United States and the subsequent Industrial Revolution. Its landscape is dominated by the Appalachian Mountains, which separate the historic port and financial centers of Philadelphia from the steel-producing heritage of Pittsburgh. It remains a key industrial and agricultural state, producing everything from coal and natural gas to chocolate and mushrooms, all while preserving many of the nation's most important historic sites. Rhode Island. This is the smallest state in the Union, defined largely by the massive Narragansett Bay and the hundreds of miles of coastline that give it the nickname the Ocean State. Its history is rooted in religious tolerance, maritime trade, and early textile manufacturing, and it remains a center for naval research and elite coastal tourism. Despite its tiny footprint, it is densely populated and maintains a distinct cultural identity influenced by its long history as a haven for independent thinkers. South Carolina. This coastal southern state is famous for its palmetto trees and a history that began with the massive wealth generated by rice and indigo plantations. Today, it balances a thriving tourism industry in historic Charleston and Myrtle Beach with a rapidly growing sector of foreign automotive and aerospace manufacturing. The state's geography moves from the sandy Atlantic coastal plain to the hilly Piedmont and finally to the Blue Ridge Mountains in the northwest corner. South Dakota. Home to the Black Hills and the massive granite faces of Mount Rushmore, this state is divided by the Missouri River into two very different halves. The east is dominated by traditional, high-yield row crop farming, while the west is characterized by rugged ranching country and the stark, colorful beauty of the Badlands. It remains a state where the legacy of the Old West is still palpable, and where tourism to its natural wonders is a primary driver of the local economy. Tennessee. This long, narrow state is culturally and legally divided into three grand divisions: the Appalachian East, the Central Bluegrass Basin, and the Mississippi Delta West. It is the undisputed global heart of country, blues, and rock and roll music, supported by a diverse economy of shipping, healthcare, and automotive assembly. From the Great Smoky Mountains, which are the most visited national park in the country, to the neon lights of Broadway in Nashville, it is a state defined by its creative energy. Texas. The second largest state by both area and population, it was once an independent republic and maintains a fiercely distinct identity to this day. Its economy is a global powerhouse driven by oil, cattle, and a rapidly expanding tech sector spread across landscapes ranging from thick piney woods to vast, sun-baked deserts. It is home to several of the fastest-growing cities in the country, serving as a massive center for international trade, space exploration, and a unique culinary culture that blends Southern and Mexican influences. Utah. Defined by its unique geological formations and its history as a refuge for the Mormon pioneers, this state features 5 of the most iconic national parks in the country. Its salt flats and world-renowned powder snow have made it a global hub for winter sports, while its Silicon Slopes have emerged as a major center for the software and data industry. The state's population is concentrated in a narrow corridor along the Wasatch Mountains, leaving the rest of the state as a vast, stunning wilderness of red rock and canyons. Vermont. This rural New England state is characterized by its rolling green mountains and its world-famous production of maple syrup and artisanal dairy products. It is known for its small-town atmosphere, the absence of billboards on its highways, and a long history of independent-minded politics and environmental stewardship. It remains one of the least populated and most forested states, attracting visitors for its vibrant autumn foliage and its traditional farm-to-table way of life. Virginia. Known as the Old Dominion, this state was the site of the first permanent English settlement in the Americas at Jamestown. It stretches from the Atlantic coast and the massive naval base at Norfolk to the Blue Ridge Mountains, serving as a hub for the military, government contracting, and some of the country's most significant historic landmarks. Its northern counties are among the wealthiest in the nation, driven by their proximity to Washington, D.C., while its southern and western regions maintain a more traditional, rural character. Washington. Named after the first president, this state is the only one in the lower 48 to contain a temperate rainforest within its borders. It is a global leader in aerospace, cloud computing, and coffee culture, with an economy centered in the Puget Sound area and a landscape dominated by the massive, snow-capped volcanic peak of Mount Rainier. The state is divided by the Cascade Mountains, which separate the rainy, evergreen west from the dry, fertile, apple-growing country of the east. West Virginia. The only state to be born out of the Civil War by seceding from a Confederate state, It is the only one entirely contained within the Appalachian mountain range. Its history and economy have been deeply shaped by coal mining and timber, resulting in a rugged terrain of deep valleys and winding rivers that have earned it the nickname the Mountain State. While it has faced economic challenges, it is increasingly becoming a destination for outdoor enthusiasts seeking world-class whitewater rafting and mountain climbing. Wisconsin. This state is the heart of the American dairy industry and is famous globally for its production of cheese, butter, and cranberries. Located between Lake Michigan and the Mississippi River, it features a mix of heavy industrial heritage in its southeastern cities and a vast network of glacial lakes and forests in the north. It is a state that takes its outdoor traditions seriously, with a culture deeply tied to hunting, fishing, and a long history of progressive social and political movements. Wyoming. As the least populous state in the Union, it is a land of massive, wide-open spaces, high-altitude plains, and the dramatic, jagged peaks of the Grand Tetons. It contains the world's first national park, Yellowstone, which sits atop a massive supervolcano and draws millions of visitors to its geysers and wildlife. The state's economy remains firmly rooted in mineral extraction, particularly coal and natural gas, and large-scale cattle ranching, preserving a way of life that feels closest to the original American frontier.